All right. Hello and welcome to Quick Save, podcast where we're anything but quick. This week, joined by Jacob Campbell,
Hey.
Dylan Murphy,
Heyo.
and Tyler Allen.
Yo.
And this week we are talking about the roles in games, the roles that you might choose to play when joining maybe in an MMO, or even sometimes the roles you set for yourself when you're playing a single player game, how you build your characters up. So first up, we're going to have Dylan.
Mm-hmm. For me, roles have kind of played a role, in the background. Like, it's never been something in the forefront of my mind in a lot of games, that it's not the main focus, right? Like in Overwatch is one game, for example, where it's kind of in your face, like you have to pick specific roles. Especially now, right? Yeah. The whole, what is it? I don't even know what it's called, but
you can almost call it
the
a
roll
queue.
Call. Yeah, roll call. There you go.
Pick out your own roles, like you pick if you're damage, tank, or if you're a support, and then you have to switch around in just those categories throughout the match if you want to switch your hero.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, in that game, I was always into support classes. So Mercy was one of my most played characters. It is probably still one of my most played characters, followed by Moira, who's also a support. Before that, like Battlefield was a game that I played a lot of medic in. So early on, support was always kind of my main focus. It's where I felt like I could bring the most to the table. Just because like my aim was never the greatest, and I played most of those games with a controller, so it just never really worked for me. But in the transition to more PC gaming, I find that my aim has improved, right? I can do a little bit more damage. I can hit shots better. And over time, I've kind of transitioned over to DPS more so, like in Apex, I would say, is a weird one where there aren't necessarily defined roles in the classic sense. They're more hybrid roles.
Yeah, definitely.
So I play a lot of Octane and Pathfinder, and they're more mobility focused, which I would classify as a support, right? Being able to get in and out of situations fairly quickly.
But at the same time, it is still that aggressive in-your-face type role,
100%.
just like kind of a tank would be.
Yeah, again, like they're just... I feel like Lifeline is the only clearly defined like traditional support character where you got the heals and stuff. And I find myself like attracted to more of the hybrid classes in games than just the traditional, Trinity. And yeah, I think that's where I kind of stand. That's kind of been my journey with roles, my experience.
Yeah, those hybrid roles have really opened up a lot in more recent games, and it helps people kind of like take that little toe out from their comfort zone.
Yeah,
where you might not find yourself wanting to be maybe an in-your-face kind of character. Now you're playing such high pressure in-your-face characters. You got them the speed and mobility to get in there and get back out. So you're getting shot at, but you're feeling comfortable in those high pressure situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%.
All right. So Tyler, your roles.
Cool. So in general, I definitely lean more towards DPS roles, just because I feel like most co-op or multiplayer games in general tend to lean more towards like an action-based style. So I kind of just want to go. And I think that I feel a little bit less inhibited to do that when I just, from the jump, select a class that is going to suit that play style. To build off of what Dylan said, there's definitely some hybrid roles that kind of help, bridge the gap between just doing DPS and, being only so useful to like actually being able to support your team in a more broad sense. But yeah. I'm also kind of partial to healers when it comes to games like Overwatch, just because they've managed to sort of integrate other methods or play styles into each of those characters that makes them feel a lot less static, and even if you are directly healing with the character, for example, like Lucio, I really like playing Lucio. You can still just like knock people off the edge, and even if you're hitting them with this gun and it's not doing a crazy amount of damage, like you can still just kind of press them, and while your team is around you, continuing to press them as well, and also getting heals. That's pretty sweet too.
Yeah, Lucio's a lot of fun, having being able to like do the wall ride and being able to not only support your teammates with heals, but also being able to switch it up and give them that speed boost too, because really in a lot of games speed and mobility is just as crucial as the healing is. So absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, like, how many times have you been in a pinch where you really need a healer like now? And I think
just a button away.
That. Exactly. It's wonderful.
That's the one thing I liked about Mercy, was like she had that dash to people that just made it really in and out, get to
and a resurrection on the spot now in a game where it's a team-based shooter where it's like, we got someone down. Oh, no, you don't. Team fights even, and we pushed you back.
Yep. Yeah, you gotta love a res.
Yep. Crucial. So I'm like 75% DPS, 25% healer, I guess.
It's all good.
It's a solid mix.
Was there any other games you'd had experience and roles in, Tyler?
So I have like a limited experience with WoW. I did not get super into it. I've picked it up a couple times throughout, but I kind of always went with the DPS class in there. I tried a druid once, and I don't know. It's more than my simple DPS brain can handle. And it's went back to the
druids are wild. Talk about the
so
only class with 4 specs in the game.
Like,
so I feel that.
Yeah, exactly. So I go back to my shooty comfort zone.
It's a good comfort zone. All right, Jake, let's hear about your role experience.
So my role experience, for the most part, it really did start off in World of Warcraft. I'm gonna be honest, I only played a DPS all the way up to max level in World of Warcraft once, and don't get me wrong, like, Fury Warrior, I gotta be honest, it was a lot of fun. You're going insane with, 2 big 2-handed swords, axes, maces, whatever, and it's a lot of fun. And then when I started kind of wanting to expand my roles a little bit, it felt really intimidating in World of Warcraft, right? Because later on correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy, but later on in World of Warcraft, you're kind of like merging the role of like healer and DPS. Is that right?
Yeah, nowadays, especially, you see healers really showing up in the damage meters now too, because they're healing while also getting that damage done, which is impressive to me because I'm too scared to ever touch healing. I was terrible at it. I tunnel vision like mofo.
And that's kind of why I started healing when I was at like a lower level. I hit like maybe like the 20s, the 30s, and I was healing, and it felt pretty easy. But later on, of course it would be difficult. And end game anything is always going to be difficult, and it felt intimidating to kind of have this multi-classed role in a class-based game, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And the other where I really kind of came into my own with going different roles had to be in Overwatch, right? Dylan, you know as much as anybody that I had at least 5 to 6 different heroes I would play, and none of them would really be the same roles.
It was insane. Impressive, really. And you were competent at least with all of them.
Yeah, and I played a lot of tanky roles in Overwatch. I played a lot of D.Va, and she was more more of an aggressor, like an in-your-face type of tank, kind of like how Octane is in Apex Legends. And I also kind of played Zarya, who is more of a self-sufficient tank, kind of saving people at the last second when they really needed it, with just a quick shield or anything, just to kind of buff them up. So that way Zarya can go in and then finish them off with the big damage that they got from that buff. Healing wise, I did play a lot of Lucio. I really want to say that Overwatch really has a unique way of bringing people in to the different roles, right? Like with Lucio, it feels very inviting to heal with him because you just have to stand near your teammates and then you're healing them. And then you press a button and then you heal them more. And then you can also, push people back, push people off the edges. There's more that you can do with it, but it makes it to where it's very easy to get started and get into that mindset of healing. In all honesty, it really just depends on the game for me. Like I said, Overwatch, I did all 3 of the main roles, like the big holy trinity. in World of Warcraft, it felt a little more comfortable to just kind of stick with that DPS, even though it takes about 12 years to find one dungeon. And when I get into other games, right, like if I get into the Monster Hunter, for example, when you use that insect glaive, you kind of buff yourself, and then you can use your dust to either damage, or you can use it to heal your teammates, or really however you want. So and we're kind of seeing more of that too, like kind of seeing more of the getting away from the traditional roles, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, and speaking of Monster Hunter, those people with the hunting horn were the absolute OGs.
They were they were like
the real
unicorns,
MVPs.
man.
Yep, but good lord, did they make it easier.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I missed the hunting horn. I did not play it as much as I would have liked.
Yeah, that was the friendship buff too, so that way your items affect your teammates.
Yep.
And I gotta admit, that was a very skill-based weapon, a very hard weapon to learn, but very much appreciated when you ran into someone who was good with it.
100%. Like, I liked it was almost kind of like rhythm game in itself within Monster Hunter that I kind of liked, right? Like, you're just constantly like, I don't know about you guys, but a little bit off topic, but like back in like Grand Theft Auto 3 Vice City days, I loved just the motion of the cheat codes. And for me, in Monster Hunter, like it kind of fits that.
No, that makes perfect sense.
It's kind of like a rhythm game. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I have for my experience with the roles.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I've played a lot of World of Warcraft, just as the first one, but I've kind of dilly-dallied around in a few other MMO RPGs and played a few. Like, I love playing MMOs. I love persistent worlds. I love being able to play with all my friends, and so that's always been a big appeal to me. And so I've played a lot of these games with roles. In Warcraft really being the defining one, and funny that you bring up Fury Warrior, Jake, because seeing a Fury Warrior standing in the middle of Stormwind is what made me want to play World of Warcraft more than anything. Seeing that man standing with two-handed weapons, I was like, wow, that's so cool. I'm going to play this game.
Mm-hmm. Wait, really? That was your inspiration?
That was absolutely it.
No shit.
He was holding these two big orange pole arms called Hell Reavers, and I loved it, and I wanted to play it, and I was a terrible warrior. See, I spec'd in a DPS spec, but I ran around with a sword and shield thinking I was a tank. And I did that for 40 levels.
Classic mistake.
Yeah. Until I had a kind person one day tell me, you're tanking wrong.
You're shit.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then at that point I had to decide what I wanted to do, and I didn't tank for a while. But I came back, and I've been playing on and off, but more on than off, for probably 6 or 7 years now, and I love tanking. In any game, I will try and tank as much as I can. There are some games where you move into those DPS roles, but I absolutely love tanking. I love being right in the middle of things. I love that feeling that, the team is relying on you. Like, tank roles can be fairly easy, but knowing that, like, you are still important to the team, that you are there trying to keep those other people alive without having to play those godforsaken healers, because I can't stand healing. It's really an awesome feeling, especially when you have those clutch moments where people are getting overrun, and as a tank you might, toss out this buff or grab all the aggro back or something like that, or move for mechanic, because you don't get a lot of those, but when they do, they feel so incredible to have. But I will say, like, I think the hardest role to play in a game is the healer, because it requires so much absolute knowledge. Like, I have a friend who I've played with that has only healed, and I think they know more about the game than anyone else, because they have to predict when mechanics are going to come up, and they might need to heal more, or might need to buff the team or something like that. And it's not something that I thought about until recently, where it was like, they know every, like, the tank's mechanics. They know their mechanics they have to deal with, where they might have to, dispel or cleanse or something like that to get rid of, like, poisons or magic effects, or they know when they need to taper their healing, because there's going to be quite a few different effects coming in, and it's actually ridiculous to me thinking that they know all of that stuff. And I'm just here in my little bubble trying to mash buttons.
Mm-hmm.
But and like that's kind of like the Warcraft perspective, I guess, from where I've seen a lot of this stuff. But when you start moving into games like Destiny, Apex, and stuff like that, you start getting those hybrid roles where everyone's a little more responsible for themselves. You don't usually have a dedicated healer, other than Lifeline, but it's a small little drone.
Yeah, it ultimately doesn't
not gonna
change.
give you a full health bar, and
No.
it's not something that you'd be able to just use in the heat of battle,
Mhm.
right? Like while you're just in combat going, it's something it's a drone you just put down, and then you just have to sit next to it. And if anybody just so much as pushes it like an inch, then it's already like, hey, only one person's getting healed now. Sorry.
I will say before she was nerfed, when she could actually pop that out in the ring, though, that was handy.
That was crucial.
There's a few times where you could just pop that and just kick the drone along with you and heal yourselves and your team. Everyone's playing soccer with the drone.
Dummy.
Not anymore.
I do miss that. I do miss that.
But yeah, we are seeing that big shift in all the different roles. Like like I was saying a little bit ago with Warcraft, like you're seeing healers go into more of that damage role, and with tanks, they're kind of mitigating their own damage, so that way they don't even need the healer for God knows how long.
So there's mitigation, but there also a lot of this, like the shift that they went with was that tanks are healing themselves. You see, that's like a big thing that they shifted to within more recent expansions, is that tanks can heal themselves, healers can put out some damage, and DPS are still useless. So, but yeah, moving into those hybrid roles where you see, Guild Wars was a fairly Guild Wars 2 at that.
Yeah.
It was a fairly big game where they kind of were like, we don't need the Trinity in this MMO. We're going to people are going to have their own healing skill. They might have some other utility abilities, but everyone is responsible for them. It's going to be more skill based, where you can actually have a dodge button that's going to help you try and negate some of that damage. So it kind of gave more of a skill based playstyle and less of a, I'm going to rely on this tank and this healer to keep me up, and I'm going to do my job of just killing them before they do more damage. And so it's really interesting moving in that direction, where you do have more skill in the game because you're responsible for yourself. If you die, well, that's on you. You made the mistake.
Right. And I think that like kind of, it's a good like teaching, like training, right? Like I'm improving as a player because I'm a little bit more self-sufficient. I have to depend on myself a little bit more. So it gets me thinking about situations in a different way than I would have otherwise.
Because you're thinking about it like, I don't just have to focus on healing them and then they'll take care of the boss or anything. No, you're thinking of, how am I gonna also dodge these big hits that are coming at me, because I'm not going to be able to just take that hit and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For instance, like in Apex, you're in a gunfight. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to sit next to Lifeline's drone and everything will be okay. Mm-mm. Well, no, you need to be getting in cover. You need to be moving and trying to make it to where they can't shoot you. If you're charging at them, maybe you're crouching and jumping around to make it harder to hit you because you are responsible for your health. Mm-hmm. That Lifeline can't keep you up.
No.
So accountability is absolutely helping.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of get more into the getting into the more like single player side of games, like just building up your character in general. Like, it's just because it's getting into more of those self-sufficient roles. You are the hero of this story. Do you want to go in Skyrim and be like this little sneak archer, which everybody develops into, or do you want to do some magic and give them some sort of status defects, like, or do you want to poison your enemies? It's just, it gets more in depth as you kind of go along. Like, those roles do end up affecting the single player games too.
Absolutely. Like, if, let's say in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you're playing that, you have these 3 different trees that you can build up. Sure, you can put equal amounts of points in all of them if you want, but well, it's interesting to have, hey, I've spread out my points along through everything. I can do a little bit of everything. In essence, it might make things a little bit harder because you're not going to excel at any one given thing. Can you get in combat and hold your own against 6 enemies at one time coming at you because you've built up your just straight brawling strength and armor? How much damage can you do from ranged? And, are you able to pick someone off before they make it to you? Or are you still right up in that fray as an assassin? And actually getting in there and getting off those one shots and then maybe vanishing again just to come back out of the bush and hit someone else and one shot them and pick them off that way. Like the roles that people like usually go along with can be pretty well defined by how they choose to build up even their single player characters in games like that.
Going back to Odyssey, it kind of, even when you're in Odyssey, right? Like you go and like progress throughout the game, and then even later on, those sort of like, you have your warrior, your hunter, and then your assassin trees. Your warrior and assassin trees can kind of blend together because you get certain abilities that you would use in the heat of combat to use your assassin type damage.
So well, I thought you were going to say something there a moment ago, and I was waiting to see if that was going to come back up.
Oh no, there was just a lot of dead air there. I just wanted to fill it.
Well, I was saying, like, right before Jake said something, I thought you were going to say something.
I don't remember now.
Okay.
If I was.
So, this one's a little short. So, in a lot of these games, and in upcoming games and past games, we kind of see that holy trinity really going away. The here's your tank, here's your damage, here's your healer, and moving into a more skill-based systems. Like combat has evolved so much in games. And we're really starting to change the way that the players themselves are. There's a lot more individual skill nowadays, and we see that so prevalently in like esports, where you can watch one player play one player's perspective and still say, wow, this person's so good because the way that games are transitioning into that skill-based system. And it is really awesome to watch. It has made esports and that kind of content a lot more interesting because you can, for instance, in Warcraft, they have right now going on the Mythic Dungeon Invitationals, which is they have a few different teams, and you can actually watch from any one of the perspectives. You can watch from the tank's perspective, and if that's something where it's like, I want to see how well this tank does, because they are playing at some of the highest edge of content right now for, again, a very old role-based game. Which I find to be pretty interesting sometimes, seeing like how the titans of tanking are making it work.
Right.
But moving forward with games, like I said, we are seeing a lot more skill-based ones. So that does transition to another question I wanted to ask you guys. What we have quite a few big releases coming out this year. So your for the remainder of 2020, what is your most anticipated game?
That's a tough
Let's go with you first, Dylan.
Oh shit, put me on the spot. All right, it's a tough one.
Good year.
It is considering, as long as everything is set to release, like that is set to releases, it's going to be a hell of a year. I don't know, man. I think the easy answer is Cyberpunk. Right? I think Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the tentpole games of the year. We've known about it since. Oh yeah, we've known about it since like 2013 or something. So it's been like 7 years of hype, and Witcher 3 definitely helped, I think, amplify the studio, right? CD Projekt Red.
Absolutely.
And I think, and yeah, last year's E3 with Keanu, and just like there's so much riding on that series, and I think it plays into the discussion of today with role designation, right? Like let's call it role designation, roll call. There are going to be so many different ways to approach situations in that game, and like I'm just more open to that, I think, now as a player, just because of the transition into single player focused games of like different roles and stuff.
Absolutely.
Into RPGs and such.
Like, are you going to maybe try and persuade your way through some stuff? Because we know it's going to have it.
Oh, yeah. Am I going to hack into systems and, like, let the turrets take out people instead of... Like, there's so many different options. And I think that could be a bit overwhelming for me. But, boy, I'm just excited to experience it and play around in that sandbox.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just having all those options, that can lead to so much replayability, because chances are you won't be able to do everything with that one character if you start spreading out. I assume that there's going to be something related to skill points, something you have to build up for your character. So chances are you can't do everything. You might have to replay through it to get to see how those options play out.
100%.
Alrighty, Tyler, what's a big game you're looking forward to here in 2020?
Ooh, so probably that Ghost of Tsushima game. I'm gonna do that over because I want to sound like an idiot.
No, I did it last week.
Ghost of Sushi.
Ghost of Sushi.
So I'm definitely looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima. I definitely think that Sucker Punch has come out with some cool titles. I think the PlayStation is pretty good with all of their first party titles in general, and having an excuse to boot mine up again is going to be pretty cool. The idea of like a game that takes place in feudal Japan with like today's tech sounds very interesting. And I know that Sekiro came out recently too, but where I definitely like the Soulsborne and like the Soulsborne series, I know I'd fall somewhere in there, but sometimes life is hard enough and I just want to play a game and not be crushed by the game too. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I think that idea. Yeah, man. So to be able to kind of like, just explore an open world in that setting is definitely unique, and that's cool. Definitely.
Yeah, and other than like that, Sekiro being a Souls, like we haven't seen a lot of open world games that take place in like a feudal Japan as a setting. No. So it could be really awesome to see all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like those themed games have all kind of had just like a very action game style, like, or a Souls-like. So just to see what their take on it is, because Sucker Punch are the one who did Infamous, right?
Oh yes, dude, Sly Cooper, Infamous.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think about like Infamous 2 is probably one of my favorite games on the PS3 era, and just to see like that theme done by that particular team just could be really interesting.
It makes a lot of sense, honestly, when you think about it. Just like how their system works, like you can like how you, I don't know if you could rail grind, but like how you would stick to the edges of things, right? And traversal. I feel like that'll fit really well with Tsushima.
That motion. We'll see.
Yeah, could be a really cool game. Jake, what are you looking most forward to here in 2020?
So one of the games that I'm looking most forward to, it's one of the games that hasn't really been talked about too much, Outriders. It's from the same people who made Gears of War Judgment and Bulletstorm. And it's going to be this new kind of next generation co-op looter shooter from, those people. And it kind of goes into what we were talking about with the roles, because you are going to have different ways that you can build your character, whether it's building them like certain damage types to affect certain bosses, or whether it's, having that self-sustainability. So that way you can, it's still a cover-based shooter, but you still want to be able to heal yourself every now and then, you know what I mean? So, but either way, it's a co-op. It's a co-op game. It's a looter shooter. It's right up all of our alleys. I feel like we would have a lot of fun with it. And it's definitely something I've been looking forward to. It's set to release this year, so hopefully it comes out. Hopefully. But, fingers crossed about it.
I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about that game. Like they did a little bit of a media push a couple months ago, but it kind of just fell off. I'm sure they were planning to do a big push for E3 over the summer, but obviously that's not happening. So yeah,
I do love me some looter shooters though.
Oh yeah,
it's been a while.
Year.
I actually didn't even hear about that prior to now, so I have something to look up.
Definitely, I think it's from Square Enix. Also, like I think Square Enix is the publisher. I don't know. Yeah,
it's I know it's from People Can Fly. It's the people who made Gears of War Judgment and Bulletstorm.
Yeah, I think they're the developers, and then Square Enix is the kind of like the publishing house. So yeah, it's an interesting mix.
It is. I'm hoping you get some Square Enix visuals in there, because I definitely think that that's a department they strive in. Like for
it looks, from what I've seen of it, it looks pretty interesting. It has almost kind of like a rundown, like the world's kind of run down,
post-apocalyptic kind of view.
Yep. Yeah. It looks pretty cool, and I do love me some co-op games. As of right now, I think the game I'm most looking forward to is kind of a toss-up between is Cyberpunk and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Since you talked about Cyberpunk, I'll tackle Valhalla.
Okay.
Well, we don't know much about it yet.
Nope.
But
We apparently had some gameplay, but I don't.
Yeah, I think I saw an article. It was like 2 or 3 seconds of gameplay.
Yeah,
in the whole video. Impressive.
Very.
But I am nonetheless still excited about it. I love Norse mythology. I think that's why God of War became one of my favorite games, is because it took place in a period that I was so excited for. And so seeing Assassin's Creed, which has, I won't say it's been exactly 100% true to history, because they do have some weird stuff that happens, but seeing things in a, they do try to recreate some of these time periods. And so getting to see the Assassin's Creed's take on 900, or the year of 900-ish, I think it's like maybe 850 to 900, that bracket of time, will be really interesting. So getting to see, like, if, will the mythology actually play into it? Will we actually get to meet Odin? Like, I know that the Greek mythology plays into Odyssey. That's honestly probably what I'm most excited about, not including Cyberpunk. I love those RPG games.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Cool.
All righty.
Yep. Are we ready to close it out?
Yes, sir. Take us home,
right.
Tommy. Take us
Take
home.
it home.
All right. So with that, we have gone over the different roles that we enjoy, kind of what helps us shape how we feel in any kind of specific game, and we've talked about what we're looking forward in 2020. And so with that, we are closing it out. We're closing up shop. It's time to go home, even though we're at home already. Have a good day, and thanks for listening to Quick Save.